So here's a question I received from Gary over on Facebook. And he asks, what saturation plugin do I use the most? And had he asked this last week, I'd have answered differently. As of not today, as of mid last week, when SSL released their Transformer plugin, I've started using that, and I kind of class that in the saturation kind of brackets, I guess. It's very much a saturation tool. It's used in the same way you would use a saturation tool. The only thing with it is I love how it sounds, and I don't particularly love how majority of saturation plugins sound. For instance, plugins like the Black Box, not keen on it. Don't find it. The problem with plugins like that is I find them to be very much guitar ampy. And you know, when you've got like the saturation kind of distorted guitar amps and things like that, great for those things, great for that. But what I want from a mixing perspective, I want something super clean and just giving it a real rich sound. And that's what the Transformer by SSL does. And it is very, very good. That is, at the moment, right, that has replaced every saturation plugin that I ever used before, just simply because it is so good. And it's one thing I will say about it straight off the bat is that it is I think it's about £150, £140, currently at a 25% discount. But you're paying £140 for something that is very, very basic, right? There's people arguing that this plugin should be £30, £40, £50, right? That's a great argument, because of what it physically does. Is it does very little. Its controls and function is basically an amount, a shine, and a wet dry. That's it. I mean, it is literally, it might as well be a couple of knobs, and that's all you're really adjusting. So there's not a lot to it, but what it does do, and the one thing it does do, and I've commented this on some posts on Facebook, and I've said, you're all complaining that it costs too much, but the one thing that we want it to do, and what it does do, it does exceptionally well, and it does it better than any other plugin, and it is game changing in the sense that it's nothing new. It's just a kind of transformer. It's emulating hitting the transformer section of the SSL Fusion, and it's a basic. But I tell you what, I can put it on every channel in a mix, right? And I'll use it on every. That's how super clean it is, and it sounds lovely over every channel of the mix, or every bus, however you want to do it. And you just give it a little bit. It doesn't have to be crazy amounts. It doesn't have to be like this distorted saturation. Just has to be a little bit, right? But you then click bypass on the whole, every single one of the Transformer plugins, and you flick it from A to B, and it is a massive difference, night and day difference. So much so that it's. I'll tell you what it's like. I'll tell you exactly what it's like. It is very much like. Imagine the sound you're getting on an analog console, and it's literally, you can turn on an analog console and you get this great sound that you would originally get from an analog console, but you get it in the box, and it sounds, to be honest, it sounds better. I mean, I've gone from an SSL analog, super analog console, X-Rack series, all of this, and I moved from that, not because that was bad, not because that didn't have a great sound to it. It had a brilliant sound to it, but I moved from that to a digital console and Dolby Atmos because it is such a superior sound. Now insert these transformers over each channel, back to that great sound, but in Dolby Atmos. So you've got now the superior sound of analog in the superior sound of Dolby Atmos, and it is. I nearly swore there, and I try not to swear on all my videos. It is unbelievable, and it does, honestly. It sounds amazing. I would highly recommend testing it out. That is the one saturation plugin that I use at the moment. I mean, I've got, right, so next door in the mastering room, I've got a VSM2, and I've got a Whitestone P331. Now, they are different class. They're on leaps and bounds above all saturation in plugin format because they're hardware, and the one thing that you always find that digital emulations cannot emulate is the true sound of saturation. And those two are they're the two of the best in the world. The Vertigo and the Whitestone, amazing saturation units. But this question's about in the box, and what I'm leading on to there is the Vertigo VSM3 plugin. It doesn't, and I think it's spoilt because I've got the hardware, and because I use the hardware, it's spoilt that it's just not got that. It's not got that the body and the oomph that hardware has. I mean, it's mainly because that hardware is so good. It's very similar. Don't get me wrong, it's very similar, but I don't use the plugin, even with the S4, with direct control of it and everything. I don't use the plugin or look at the plugin or kind of treat the plugin in the same way as I do the hardware. The hardware is exceptional. The plugins, it's all right. All of those sorts of saturation things we've got, like Plugin Alliance do the Big Owl. They're all, I mean, I've tried them all. I've got the subscription to Plugin Alliance. I've got all of that. I've had the opportunity to use it, and I just don't ever touch anything like that because I find, do you know what I find? In my honest opinion, what I find with those sorts of saturation plugins is you more side with the distortion. And as someone like myself, I don't want to put distortion into tracks, especially in saturation. And it's more sounding like distortion rather than saturation. Rather than making a mix sound really lovely and weighty and saturated and beautiful, rather than it being a pleasing sound, it's more this plugin has made it just a bit distorted and a bit like I'm running through a guitar amp, and that I don't want. And that's why I use the SSL transformer, because it has none of that. Oh, of course, you can drive it super hard and you'll get some clipping and distorting sort of sounds out of it, but generally speaking, you can go really clean at about 50% on the meter and run it into it, and it sounds unbelievably good. And you will notice, you take it off and you put it on, and A to B, you will hear such a good difference. So yeah, that's currently. It might change as of next week. We'll see what the plugin industry release, but I'm thinking SSL have kind of nailed quite a few plugins that are, if you've got the subscription or you've bought them perpetually, they have literally, they've pretty much nailed the plugin market, that you could either get onto their subscription or you could buy all their plugins and pretty much be covered every angle, with reverb, with channel strip, with EQ, compression, saturation, all of that stuff. And I might add, I've got the X Saturator, I think it's called X Saturator by SSL, and I was keen on that when I first got it. I thought it was all right, and I thought it was good, and I was using, because I had the SSL VHD preamps, and I knew about the third harmonic and the second harmonics and all that sort of lovely stuff. And this X Saturator kind of did a little bit of that, and it sounded cool. And after a week or so, you fall out of the honeymoon phase once you get a plugin, and then you start treating it like every other plugin, and you look at it slightly different, and you look at what it's bringing to the table after the honeymoon period. And after the honeymoon period, I haven't touched it since, to be honest. And it's not that it's not a good plugin; it's just not right for the way that I mix. I want stuff that's clean. I want what is this SSL transformer. So if there was a plugin that I would recommend in terms of saturation, and some people might say, well, the transformer plugin, it's not technically saturation. I kind of put it into that bracket. I put it into there because it is doing what I want from a saturation plugin. I want that kind of tube warming sort of sound, and that's what the transformer, although it's a transformer, not tube, it's that kind of warming, richer sound.